honored to be your host today, and along with me there is Devang, my co-host. I warmly welcome each one of you to today's thought-provoking conversation. I would request everyone to keep their mobiles on silent mode. I would request all the alumni who have joined us through YouTube to drop in their questions, if any, in the YouTube live chat box, which we will pick in the end. We, the Guest Lecture Committee, brings you to the sixth conversation under Careers and Conversations, an elite and exclusive platform together with eminent speakers from different walks of life, reflecting on their personal and professional voyages. This platform aims to provide ample learning opportunities through real-life stories to faculty, students, and alumni alike. Today, we ponder on the topic of learning, mastering, and beyond. With one such personality, I would request my co-host Devang to shed some light on him.
Thank you, Marshwata. So today, on the sixth conversation of this academic year, it's an honor to host and converse with Mr. Sonal Jain, a dynamic and visionary leader. Mr. Sonal Jain has built a distinguished career in capital markets and financial service industry. Currently leading CLSA India, he has been instrumental in driving the firm's operation, shaping strategic initiatives, and fostering strong relationships with institutional investors. Mr. Jain's extensive career includes serving as the executive director at ABN Amro Equities from 1997 and worked there for 3 years before joining CLSA. With over 24 years of experience at CLSA, he has developed a deep expertise in investment management and market analysis. His insights into global financial markets and strategic leadership will provide a comprehensive understanding of the challenges and opportunities in the investment landscape. A proud alumnus of Somaiya Institute of Management from batch 1993, Mr. Jain's story is one of the inspiration and excellence. The conversation will be led by Arun Thukral sir, our guest lecture committee faculty head, who is a professor of practice in finance and leads corporation relations at Somaiya Institute of Management. Before I hand over to Arun sir, I would like to invite Dr. Raman Ramchandran to felicitate our guest. The shawl is from Somaiya Kala Vidya and it's hand woven by the artisans from Kutch.
Thank you.
Say a few words, is it? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon. And, first of all, thank you very much, Sonal, for being here, coming back. It's always a great inspiration to have one of our alumni who has had such a successful career to come and talk to all of you, because I'm sure that you will find that it gives you the confidence that, one of your alumni has made it, so you can also make it. I must also thank him especially because Sonal just landed this morning from China. He was there for the last about a week in business meetings. So, it also tells you what alumni do for you. The commitment that, after such a long trip, I think he got in around 3 in the morning. I'm sure you'll hear from him that he takes the effort to come and, spend the time with us. So thank you. And my request is make the best out of it, right? And thank you again for turning up in such large numbers. I really hope that this Careers in Conversation is really adding to the learning that you have here. It's a very unique opportunity that many other don't necessarily have because they lack the kind of alumni strength. They're not in a place like Mumbai, which allows us to do this. So make the best out of it. And again, thank you. And thank you, Arun, for hosting this evening. Yeah, look forward to a very interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to hand over the stage to Arun, sir, to begin our session on learning, mastering, and beyond.
So thank you, Sonal, once again.
And how are you feeling now? Because you landed just yesterday night or early morning today.
So I was feeling sleepy in the morning till 11 o'clock. But when I came to the campus, I am very energized. Yeah,
That's a good one. I think the first compliment. Yeah, thank you. So I think typically we start with the first question is, how was your early career? And when I ask you this question, and then you have to mention about your days at Simsar and what you learned here also.
Sure.
I think that's how we should.
So I come from a small city called Jabalpur, which is in the central India, Madhya Pradesh, right? And come from a business family, so got exposed to just learning how businesses are conducted, although it was not a very large business, but enough for me to get exposure to talking to people, interacting. Also, it was an engineering business, so manufacturing, so it was but natural that in our time there were only two choices, you are doctor or engineer. And so engineering was confirmed for me, right, coming from that background. So I did my engineering from Jabalpur itself, Jabalpur Engineering College, and it was not easy, tough exams as always as it is now. You get like 1800 students selected out of whole of Madhya Pradesh for various colleges. So after doing my engineering, I was pretty clear that I have to join my family business. But as luck would have it, I was lucky to get a job with L&T at the campus, and then at the campus when I joined L&T, I had a problem that I was working on buying capital goods, and then someone asked me, okay, when you are buying capital goods, you have to fill a form, and we were buying like a big crane. It was like almost 450 crores. I'm talking 1990s. So big number, but there was a column at the end which says, tell me what is the payback period for that, and I had no clue what payback period is. So I thought if L&T buying a crane requires, that one number, then maybe I should learn about it, and that's how I developed an interest in doing an MBA, and that's how I came to Somaiya. I did my MBA in finance. As we talked in 1993, I graduated from here and went straight back into L&T to work on project appraisals there then. But then I realized that, financial markets are opening up, 93, 94 when the whole opening up was happening, and I always say that our batch and batch around us were very lucky because the world was making the stage for us to be successful, just the wave of changes which were happening. So I landed up in credit rating, in CRISIL. I always had this desire that if I take a role, I should learn about it. And so instead of joining equity markets directly, I spent some time in CRISIL where I learned how to analyze companies. And then from then on.
So I can relate the theme, learning, mastering MBA, and we'll talk more about that later.
Sure, yeah. So then I joined, stockbroking. I was an analyst covering various sectors. Again, I always like to put myself into problems, right? And I think the best is if you force yourself to take on problems, you develop that muscle to win, right? So whenever someone used to approach me for a job change, and at that time it used to happen all the time because we were in a very strong growth path in the markets and economy. My only thing was that I will if you give me a new sector to cover, right? And that was like someone paying me to learn. So that's what, I didn't change that many jobs. I just remained free. And then I landed in CLSA in 2000 and have been there for the last 24 years.
Yeah, so you talked about L&T, so I will have more question. L&T is in news nowadays. So I'll come back to that question also.
I understand.
Okay. So coming back to MBA days, any stories about the campus, about this? Because I think the students would love to know that. Any achievements?
I think there are 3 or 4 things which I learned outside the classroom, right? So obviously you learn whatever you learn in the classroom, the typical financial management. So at that point of time I was clear I have to do finance, but since I thought I'll go back and do my family business, I actually used to attend marketing classes as well, and it was flexible. So it was fun, attending classes where you don't really care about what marks you get, because you don't appear for any exams, right? So that education is the best education. I think so that was one, learning cross across sector, right? So ops, not necessarily being an engineer, but finance and marketing is where I spent most of my time learning the skills, but that was all classroom. I think there are three things which are, like if I think back, which were very interesting. One was, you think of a person who has come from a small town in Jabalpur and right in the middle of Bombay, and one of the first thing which I thought I had to improve was communication. Like the confidence to talk, and the confidence to talk in a manner that people understand what you say, right? Because many times we talk a lot, but no one really understands what you want to say. So I think in the first year, if I would say the second semester is when, because it was very case-oriented thing and you have to present in the class, that's something which I learned. More importantly, when you see your fellow student presenting, right? So you know exactly how that should have been said, which would have been great for me. So I think that was one very good skill to learn, how to talk. The advantage of that was almost in next year, because I met my wife in the campus, right? She was in my classroom. So the better communication helped me.
Yeah.
Obviously,
communication has to be better when you get
so
that achievement.
Yeah.
So you have taken something home from here.
Something home.
Okay, good.
Forever.
Forever. Or she has,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
So I think that was the second thing. And I think the third thing was, I think we were a transformation batch, right? Because there was one way of education which was happening before our batch came in. And our view was that we have to actually change the way we study, right? And I would say that it was very interesting that at least two of us got together and we said that we will get as many guest lectures as we can to come and teach us. Separate classes over and above the normal.
Thank you for saying so.
So I think now when I look back, who is who of the industry? We were able to go get them. And I was very amazed now that we had this QR code to enter the campus if you have to bring a car. Otherwise, one of you used to run to the gate, wait for the guest to come and accompany them all the way here so that he's not stop over there, right? So we did all that, and it was all student-run initiative, right? And we got full freedom and flexibility from the management to do it, and we did that. And I think that taught us how to interact with very senior people, right? So just getting into some senior management office, just knocking, cold calling many times because mobile phones were not there. You can't get anyone on direct line, just going there and then selling the idea why they should come and do that get lesson. I think that was a third thing which I really enjoyed and learned from.
Yeah. So you talked about the transformation. So that brings me to another question. So those days, and if you compare that with today, those days there was no internet. The economy was opening up some around 80s, 90s. And now if you compare, you have everything. But there are some pluses and some minuses. How do you compare this? The learning was much faster because you were more focused, or it is better now because you have a lot of information? Because nowadays you struggle, the kids struggle. Any view, how should you focus today? I think that would be great to know.
So I think there are two ways to look at it, right? We live in a society where if you are slightly better than the next one, you succeed, right? So there is this incremental way on how we operate. Even if you look at the grading system, it is very incremental in nature, right? If you look at CAT exam, whatever you guys would have given, then this incremental, it's like scoring, right? How you compare. So it is important to win based on the environment, right? So if you are the disadvantage, like when I was an engineering student, I had membership in 5 libraries in Jabalpur. No internet, so the only course is to go to libraries, right? So just getting those books and reading was useful because that was internet at that time, right? Later on, when I was here doing my MBA and stuff like that, and first few years of my life, when there were no emails, internet came without emails and an official word and all that. You have to think of how to communicate in terms of writing in one single piece of fax paper, right? Because that's how you communicated your research idea. And then you got emails, and then suddenly we said, oh, you have to like a 30-page report. How do you, because it was published, how you get it into like 400 words, right? Actually, there was a very clear thing that how you communicate part of it, right? Why? Because if you are competing with attention with others, and I have a 30-page note, someone else have like 400 words, that would be read first, then if he has time, he will come and read my report, right? So there is one, so now we flip it around, that how do we consume data and how do we learn, right? So that is the same thing. I don't think, I'm not of that school of thought that kids today don't read books, right? Yes, they don't, right? But the thing is, I used to read at least one book a week. I don't think I would have read a book in last 3 years, but I have absorbed more information in the last 3 years than I would have done in the previous 3 years. But the important thing is you should have a system that when you are absorbing, say if you are trying to watch a YouTube video for 15 minutes, then you just watch that, right? Like subscribe to Prime or whatever in YouTube, right? So that you don't get ads, you don't get distracted. That is worth paying that much money. So don't get distracted when you're spending 10, 15 minutes. Then 100% attention should be on that. And then you can do whatever you want to do, right? But that's the thing, right? It's all about attention.
So undivided, focused attention,
Same
even
thing
for short period.
Reading a book, you require a lot of attention if you have to finish, right? Same way if you have to watch a video for 15 minutes, you require the same attention.
Very well, sir. I think you're giving good ideas to the students. And what about some challenges? Because obviously when you start your career, you have a lot of challenges. Anybody helped you, any mentors, anything comes to your mind in the initial part of your career?
So I think I have been very lucky. One of the big successes in career always requires someone and it not be the same person at any point of time in your life. And it is not necessary, I'm talking from a work perspective, not necessary it has to be a senior person, right? There have been cases when I have been helped by people who are junior to me, who helped me grow in my career. I have been helped by a lot of people who are very senior to me, who helped me in the initial phase of thinking, developing knowledge. I think one of the key things over there is, and it's not just like work, it's like friends as well, right? People who have, people around you, right? They will go to work in different places. Now it depends on you whether they would help you when you need it, and that help is like a phone call, 10 minutes of an input from someone to understand something, or whether they won't, right? And it is up to you, each one of you, to make that effort to maintain that relationship. So I think we talk about MBA colleges and work environment as a networking event, right? We have to network. But that networking is not just shaking hand and exchanging cards and saying hello, whatever. It doesn't work, right? When you need help from them, it is at a crunch time. And you should have done something for them to get it back. Whichever way, it's not that you have helped in their career, it can be, just wishing them birthdays or whatever, but you have to remember and have that connect. And I'm sure there would be a WhatsApp group which would be formed for your batch once you have all graduated. Make sure it is not restricted to only wishing happy birthday and good morning, right? So you should exchange more information and keep that connection going.
Thank you. And something about the theme which you have given us, learning, mastering and beyond, because you were talking about a career in research, career in sales, then career in investment banking. You kept on learning, mastering. So tell us about that journey, how it happened.
So I think there are different ways you can succeed, right? You can be master of one, right? You can just say, okay, like we were talking earlier about the highest paying job in financial sector right now, computer science graduates from IIT Bombay, the top 30, 40 guys who come and join the financial sector industry only for doing option trading, the high frequency trading, HFT as it is called. Now that is very, very high level of focus and learning of one subject, right? That's it. You don't have to learn 10 different things. But most of the jobs which exist, or most of the career opportunities which exist, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, whether you want to work in various financial sector or marketing, whichever role you want to go into, requires knowledge from one segment getting enhanced by a new discovery in the second segment, right? So if you look at most of the scientific discoveries in the world do not happen working in one silo. The physics guy learns something new developed in chemistry, uses it, and then able to take physics forward. Same way in management, it works in the same manner. You learn something from marketing, use it in finance. You learn something from operations, you use it in marketing. So that means you have to learn multiple things. Great. Now, learning multiple things also means that you have to reach a certain level of mastery in them. Just knowing about them is not good enough, because then you will not be able to use it. You only use things in which you are confident. Otherwise, you will not use it, right? So you have to have a basic level of confidence before you start using them. So I think that's the second part, that okay, you learn, then you master that. Master that to a level that you can use it. I'm not saying that you have to write a thesis on it, but you should have enough confidence to use it in talking and discussing with the same sector people or same people. And then move on to a new thing. Don't get stuck there, right? And if at this point of time in life where we are from a global cycle, the changes which we will see in next 5 years would be so rapid and so fast that we have to run to keep pace, right? And hence I thought that this topic would be useful to talk about.
And I can relate sales with investment banking a little bit, but sales with research, and you mastered both.
Yeah.
So how do you explain that? Because somebody who loves research normally would hate sales. That's what I have seen.
Yeah.
That sales humse nahi hoga.
So
But you mastered in both.
Yeah. So even today, the sales team which we have, I think 70% of them have research background, right? And my same thing, right? People think sales means that you take something and just distribute it out without much application of your own mind, right? I think that's not what sales is all about, right? If you are in sales, you should be a value-added salesperson, especially in financial sector. When you know the subject and you are selling, it becomes an easy process to sell. You don't have to try that hard because you are not afraid of what he will ask, which I will not know the answer to, right? So I think, and I tell each of the research person that you are a salesperson. And I tell each of the salesperson that you should understand research.
Thanks for telling this, because that is what is required today. Yeah, I think that's great. So something about your industry now. What are the emerging sectors? What FII is like? What is the global interest in India? Something about that. Trends.
So I think I'll start from top down basis. So I think each one of you should try and find books to read on financial history, right? Because we work in cycles, right? And the cycle in which our generation was growing is coming to an end, right? And this cycle started in late 70s, early 80s when there were changes of leaders. I think, Ronald Reagan came in US in early 80s. You had Margaret Thatcher. China became open, right? And started serving manufacturing for the world. And that trend was known as globalization, right? Globalization has been around for a long time, but that was given as it became central theme as globalization, which, where there was certain thought process that, there would be this big trickle down effect, which will make, if you make few people rich, ultimately everyone will become rich, right? Because they will create new jobs, they will invest, and that's how the process will work, which was Reagan's basic theory. Now that has run its course, right? And that is now reflected in all the decisions which we are seeing being taken in the world, which are stopping that globalization process or reversing it. So whether we say that, oh, we want to become a manufacturing giant, we want to do Swadeshi, we want to do Make in America, whatever, all these thought processes which we are talking about are a reversal of that. And the reason for that is that trickle down did not happen. So you have higher disparity of income globally, right? So the rich became richer and poor did not become as rich, right? So the difference, it's not that they did not, anyone benefited, right? But as I said, right, it's always relative. So the relative game came into play, and now the political changes we are seeing in the world is all about bringing it all to same level and not having this whole thing that if I am best in manufacturing cars, then I'll make cars for the world. That doesn't work any longer, right? Because we will put tariff or we will come up with saying that we need our own car. Now, while this change is going on, you have another change which is happening, which is after internet, mobile, now we have AI, which is the central theme. right? And the amount of investment which is going into it will mean it will have a very fast growth. Now, generally what I have seen in my life, various cycles, is that there is a lot of talk and it takes 10-15 years for it to become central because the infrastructure for that thought does not exist. That's not the same as AI. In AI, whatever it needs already exists, right? Whether it is fast data communication, where it is computing power, whether it is data in the form of digital to train, all that already exists to a large extent, right? So this will be a faster growth cycle. In next 3 to 5 years, we will see it impacting everyone in a significant manner. And if you as a student do not use AI every day, then you will lose out, right? Then you have to become very accustomed to knowing how to use it, where it works, where it doesn't work. Don't use it for the exams, but yeah, apart from
so they
that,
use lot of, every student wants to use lot of AI.
Yeah.
So the challenge is on us now.
So it's the same thing, right? When in our school,
But it is required.
there was a issue, oh, you can't use calculators, right? So then, so that there's always, this is this traditional thinking process where they say, oh, you have to learn it all and remember it all.
You have to take a middle path
you have to take a middle path.
and take the best out of it.
Yeah. So these are the changes which are happening globally, which you have to take into account first, right? Because this was now the key difference which has happened because of that for us from India stock market or economy perspective is that the money which the central theme was that emerging markets are growth markets. These will see higher manufacturing, costs are lower, labor is cheap, and there is this whole economic growth which has to happen. So the money has to flow from developed world to buy into emerging markets, right? And obviously China was the largest one because it was exporting most of it. We have gone through that cycle in Korea earlier. We are still going through some of that cycle in Taiwan. We had Japan as the first one in 70s and 80s, right? So this is the basic theory that money will move in this direction. But whenever there have been strong technology shifts and money has moved to technology, this stops. And money moves where that technology is most relevant, right? So what we are seeing now is the money is first not coming out of US. In fact, if you look at it, every country in the world, retail money or institutional money is actually flowing through US. So we have these extremes in the market which we are seeing now, that the 7 magnificent stock as they are called have $17 trillion of market cap. Now to put this in context, if we take China, if we take Japan, if we take Korea, if we take India, if we take all these Asia Pac countries, the total market cap is $21 trillion. So just 7 stock. So this is, I think, the key challenges which are facing.
So you talked about money, you talked about stock market. So you make people rich, you do research. So can you share with us any story or any discovery of a stock which was then bought over and people made a lot of money? Any example which comes to your mind, which is your...
So I can talk about an IPO which we did, which was very interesting, which is a company called Barun Beverages, right? So this is
well-known stock, yeah.
Yeah. So they are basically Pepsi bottlers in India, and it has done phenomenally well. When we listed it, it was, I think, just over $1 billion market cap. I think it's currently $23-24 billion and listed in 2016, right? So in a short period of time, it has created value. Obviously, it is their work what they have done to get it. But I'll say that when the key, why I remember that as a story always is, because when we were going through the IPO process, it was a huge debate in terms of how to value this, because there were not many listed bottlers even in Asia, forget India, right? So how do you value a bottler? And the debate was that whether it's a manufacturing company which is just bottling, whether it's a marketing FMCG company, how do you think about that? And ultimately, what I believe is that when you look at any business, you should have the ability to make it into a black box and see the financials going in, financials coming out, how it looks like, the shape of the company, right, the shape of the animal, that to decide what it is. And here there was a challenge in that, because the company's ROC was low, and usually if you have a FMCG company, your ROC would be high. Now the interesting thing is that when I really I sat with the CFO and group CFO, and we spent a lot of time going into that, and the answer was pretty simple, right? There were 2-3 factors, and some of the finance students will understand it much better. You sell cold drinks in summer, so your factories work for maybe 4 or 5 months on full capacity, and for 7-8 months they are idle, right? Not running at full capacity. And but when you are depreciating it as of whatever is the depreciation policy. In this case was 9 years, right? So you are writing it off in 9 years. While the factories were running, each machines were running for far number of years. And now that basically clicked in my mind when I was visiting the plant, and I was talking to the plant manager, and he showed me a machine which was older than me, right? And I just said, okay, this is definitely more than 9 years it has been running around. And then when I went and I had a discussion, they said, yeah, this is the policy. But then I said, but that machine had like compute CNC and all that. How no machines were being made like that? And they said, okay, we invest 4 to 5% of our gross block every year to upgrade the machine, and anyway put it in the profit and loss account. So essentially, if you understand the concept of depreciation, it is obsolescence, that you have to replace the machine, right? And so you put that as a cost. Here, the machines were running for a longer time, and they were reinvesting in it to make it run as if they are new, and they were anyway putting that cost in. So it was like being costed twice. So when you work it back, you saw that the ROC was not that bad. It was actually quite good. And we actually then changed, and the way we were marketing that story and talked to investors about it, explained that, and then it got the right level of positioning in the industry as a FMCG company.
I think many fund managers talk about that, and I think in many of the mutual funds also, this stock is well represented. So anything on the latest regulation? There are a lot of guidelines now. SEBI comes up with a lot of this F&O you talked about. So the atmosphere is changing now. Derivatives are good or bad, or how much regulation is required? What is your view on that?
So I think for you as a student at this point of time in life, next 10 years you will see two fights, right? One is a fight of asset class, and the asset class which no one talks about much in India is crypto, right? And that's a hotly debated asset class, right? When I'm traveling abroad, everyone talks about it. In India, we talk about it less. Now, what I will encourage anyone who has interest in crypto or understanding blockchain is like how I did it was, if you go to MIT website, there is a 12 lecture series by one gentleman who is currently the head of SEC. So he is the regulator, right? So I found it interesting, Mr. Glessner, that he was teaching there this course, and I just went through it to learn what it is. And incorrectly my summary of that was that no government or no regulator in the world would like this to prosper, right? And now suddenly we have a change in US, and president comes in and who supports crypto. So you see what happened to the cryptocurrency in the last few months, right? So understanding that as an asset class is very interesting as understanding gold as asset class. Because if you use any financial metrics to value gold, you can never ever come to a conclusion how to price gold. Same way crypto, there is no maths which you can, so why I am talking about these two asset classes. In your first lecture in finance or valuation, you will talk about DCF value and dividend discount model. All those are very important, relevant. But they are important and relevant if you read around it, what were the condition, why they were made, right? For CAPM model, you all study CAPM model. But you have to understand why was CAPM model discovered. It was discovered to price utility prices, electricity prices in UK. There is a book on that, right? That that how that happened. Always when you learn tools, understand that context, right? Because then you can understand asset classes and pricing. And there is nothing which exists for crypto or gold. So the value of money becomes a very important structure to understand before you go into the maths, so that you know the boundaries where it will work and where it will not work. So if you go out of that boundary, you know this thing doesn't work. It's like Newtonian physics, and then you go and start talking about, you know, that there is this whole world outside of that, where none of the laws which hold, right? And then how do we put that into context? So the first part which you talked about is regulations and how that impact asset classes. I think these are contexts that regulations will not support many asset classes. Governments and regulators believe that they can incentivize investors in a particular direction. Like we have seen that whole thing related to taxation also happening. Equity should be tax-free, should be taxed. There are all these debates about that. But that is global in nature, right? Government always will work in a way to incentivize a particular asset class which is good for the economy. But the investor will work in a manner which is good for them, right? So that's the basic of economics, that everyone wants to do what is better for them. So we have to put that in context when we talk about regulations. The second thing which you touched was very rightly on option trading, right? Now there is a big difference here now. Gold and crypto you can't price. Option is a totally mathematical thing. You can price it to exactness. Actually you make money by small difference in pricing which exists, and then when you try and make that money, it gets to the right pricing. So as I said, the largest amount of money in the stock market which was made in the last few years was on option trading, right? And that option trading exists at various levels. There can be retail investors who are using it as a punt for a day, which is obviously no one would like that to be like a lottery. So there are some regulations which are trying to control that. But on the other hand, there are very sophisticated market makers, which I talked about right in the beginning, who are working on that to make small amount of money in large quantity, which is totally maths. So the regulators are hitting both the classes. They don't want the lottery system to exist, correctly so, because people who don't understand it can lose a lot of money without realizing it. And then this, because there is no clear valuation on it. So if you have seen, just like historically there have been curves put on owning gold, there would be curves, and there exist curves on crypto. So these are the two asset classes and regulations which are of most interest. I will not go into SEBI listing norms. I don't think that's the right stage.
I think you have addressed the issues what I checked up. So before I move to your personal life, maybe a little, because so far whatever you are talking and you have done a lot of things, and so everybody is getting an impression that you work very hard. Obviously you work very hard, but how hard? And the debate nowadays, you know, when we talk about the work-life balance, and you started your career with L&T, so I need not say much. So what is your take on that? Your work-life balance and what is being talked about, what do you think?
So I'll take the more controversial question first, right? I believe I'm totally against the concept of any work. So okay, so let's divide work into two components, right? One is repetitive daily work. It's like a person working in a field, which is physical in nature, which is repetitive in nature, and that person generally does not have any big payoff by working, say, 10% extra, right? So the thing is that the work culture that has been set up. So okay, let me take a step back. 3 phases of development in the world, right? So the first was the agrarian economy, then we shifted to industrial, now we are in knowledge economy, right? So first we have to understand, when you think of work, where you are, right? So the first example I was trying to give was an agrarian economy. When you are working, you work for 8 hours, you get X amount of money, which is generally fixed across that state or across that whatever. If I tell that person you work 3 hours more, it doesn't make sense for him to work 3 hours more, right? Because then he is doing physical labor, right? Then it's not even human to ask someone to work that much extra. If you're not paying him also for that, then it is much worse, right? So I think that's the debate. Now, agrarian economy exists across these 3 phases, right? It exists in industrial, it also exists in knowledge. So I am totally for controlled working hours and work-life balance related things for work which is of this style, right? Because it is not something which you look forward to every day, right? And B, the upside of doing extra is not, it is linear, it is not exponential, right? Because the incentive is not exponential. On the other hand, if you are an entrepreneur, and I come from a business family, so I understand that there are no working hours. You can work for like 20 hours and then you may not work for even 3 days, right? But your mind is always working, right? So is there a work-life balance?
So no Sunday, no weekend.
There are no Sunday, no weekends, right? When I was like, my first, nowadays we call it startup, it was work given to me at that time, was to set up a electroplating plant for BHEL before joining my engineering college and after my exams, right? So that was like a 2-month thing. And I think I worked all along, and the worker never used to come on Sunday. I used to be alone there and trying to get things sorted, how to make it work, right? So it depends on your interest and your drive. So if you think that you have to be really successful and you have a role whereby doing that you can be successful, and you choose to do that, work as many hours as you want, right? It's a personal choice. I don't think like in IT workers working 20 hours a day will help them very much.
Good. And what about you, other than work, what you do, watch TV, play, go out?
So I think, again, there have been phases, like I used to love playing tennis at one point of time, and I used to find time, and we had a lot of people in our office, we used to go out together to do that. Then if you ask me now, I would spend like, I go for walks on each weekend, long walk, 1.5 hours walk. But I have my, listening to some podcasts as I am walking and trying to learn. I like to learn new things, right? So as I talked about during COVID, I learned all about because you were at home at that time, all about blockchain and stuff like that. I love reading and learning astrology, which is very interesting topic which I find related to some work I have done in the past on calendars, like how calendars work in the world, why there are different types of calendars.
Very interesting. Yeah.
So I would study those type of things. I like spending time with my kids. So, for my walk, whenever my daughter is there with me, then I won't be using the podcast, and it will be more of discussion about what we are doing.
Great, great. So before we open for questions, any last piece of advice for students on they want to get into market, research, portfolio management?
No, I think in today's time, if you have to be really successful, you do what you love, right? Because otherwise you will not be able to invest the efforts which are required to be successful, right? Many times when I talk to people who have my age, we have worked, they say, okay, this is the privileged class. I said, yes, privileged on what we thought were privileges, right? What they want to be the privilege, they still have to fight for it, right? And that's the same thing in our generation. So every generation have to fight for something which is their example of success, right? And you can only win that if you are following a path which you like. If you don't like it on a daily basis, like I have never come across anyone who is very successful, not just in India but globally whom I have interacted with, who don't feel like working on that problem or what they are doing every morning. So that is something which is, this is the time, and maybe in the first few years of your career, that's when you decide what is it that you love. Don't worry about money in the first 10 years of your life. It will not work, right? If you are really successful, what you will earn after that would be much, much more. I think if I have, like people ask me what the mistake you did, I said, oh, I was coming from a background where I was saving from day one. That was actually quite useless, right? That saving is very small. So, spend money in the first few years. Just spend money, don't save.
That's a great advice. Thank you. I think, shall we take some questions now? Yeah.
The floor is open for Q&A.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, and thank you for this amazing session. Sir, my question was ki, some of the books, what books would you recommend for understanding the financial history that you talked?
So I can give a separate list out. I don't remember them often, but more than the books, there are papers, right? So if you go to if you just Google on that, see, the thing is today you don't have to ask me what to read, right? You can just Google and you will have the answer. Now what I would suggest in a very simple way is to learn how to make this question instead of me to AI and ask them and ask for advice on books, on YouTube videos, on papers, and then do it your way, because that's the better way of doing it than to read one book. Because there is nothing like to get to my whatever I have learned, there was no one book which we taught me, right? It was like maybe 15 books, maybe 10 videos, stuff like that, right? So the important point is the question. The answer you will get now. Earlier you have to not only know the question but also find the answer and take so much time. Now answer is very easy, you will get it. Learning history is not a problem, future is the problem. That's where we have to work on.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. So I'd like to ask, having been involved with CLSA for almost 2 decades now, would you like to share some pivotal moments throughout the journey, like if you could recall?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first one was joining CLSA, because I was covering a different sector, and joining CLSA I had to take on a new sector, which was my choice. Otherwise I would. So I think that was putting myself in. So just to get an understanding, if you are a research analyst and you are covering a sector, you get rewarded or get evaluated by votes which are given by various institutions to whom you service, right? So you have a set number of people, you are friends with them, you have serviced them, they give votes. Now when you change the sector, this goes to zero and you have to start right from again, the whole thing again, right? So I was covering in ABN Amro as a banking analyst, and I took on consumer sector when I joined CLSA. So that was like a first pivotal movement in terms of taking that decision. The second thing was that after doing research for 6 years, I decided to move to sales, and I was asked and I took that decision in like 1 hour, right? So that was again like you leave everything what you want from your positioning perspective and you start something from zero level. So I think that again was a pivotal movement. And I think 2009 when I took over as country head, and then there were multiple, then it becomes a very different ball game, because growing new businesses, trying to do something new becomes more important. So I think if you become a CEO of a company, every couple of years would be a pivotal moment, because you are trying to do something new and there are challenges you are facing. So I will not go into those details, but I think these two were the key important steps taken.
Hello, sir. Great session, sir. Last month, I believe in November, you had a 27 CLSA India Forum, right? So out there, I believe you made a comment about how the economy is moving from savings to equities. So
Sorry,
I want
savings
to know,
to?
equities.
Money is moving towards
Yeah,
equities, yeah.
So I wanted to know, in that transition, what career opportunities in the finance world do open up. Inherently from the investments coming from abroad, I do know that IB terms are going up very high. But from where we see a domestic shift in money transition from the savings accounts to the equity accounts, in that process, what career opportunities open up for finance students? It will be great to know if you get your insights.
So see, the opportunities, let's look at how the industry is growing, right? So then the opportunities become very clear. So if you look at the financial sector from equity perspective, let's divide it into 2 or 3 components and look at opportunities in each of them. So the first is, you say, okay, someone who is taking money from retail to invest in the market, right? So these are mutual funds. There are insurance which have their ULIP schemes, right? So that is one part of it. There are a lot of fund managers who have started on their own of what is known as AIFs, right? So they exist. So here you are making a decision of either marketing to get the money from people into the funds, or you are taking a decision how to invest, right? So that is one field of career opportunities which are there. The second is that this has to be invested, so someone has to advise and transact, right? That's where all the broking company comes, where you have roles of research and sales and trading. These are the roles over there. Also related to that is institutional broking, when you're taking institutional money, but retail investor also invest directly. So then it comes the retail broking part, which is very different than institutional broking, right? So you have wealth management firms which come over there. You will have even like the retail broking firms who are trying to then get investors directly to come and trade with them, right? This whole option market and all those type of things, where retail is in the retail part of that. So I think there are opportunities there. Now, when equity market develops in any country, the industry starts getting funding from them, right? And for that, you have the investment banking part, which comes into play, right? Which is raising money for corporates for their growth, or if private equity has invested in that, then divesting. Then there are ancillary which develops around the equity market, which I touched on, which is private equity, right? That's also a very strong growing field with a lot of local private equity firms which are becoming big. So that's essentially, if you have a market where you can divest the investments which you are making in the private space in public, then that industry grows and starts getting money over there, and people start thinking that they have a better advantage, the retail or high net worth individual, they have better advantage of putting money in a company which is still not discovered, still private, and you can make better money when it gets listed, right? So I think these are some of the spaces where career opportunities are there.
Any interest on the ESG investing or impact investing? Because you meet both sides. You meet a lot of investors and you meet a lot of corporates who wants to raise money. So what is the status? We talk so much about ESG, but what is the actual interest level?
So if you look at ESG, we use it as one term, but obviously there is differences in that. The last part, G, which is governance, is something which is not new, right? Which is also much more regulatory in nature than environment and sustainability. So, like governance, I'll give you an example that when I joined CLSA in 2000, in I think the first 2 or 3 years, we wrote our first big report and started rating companies based on governance. So we used to give each company in India rating, which was score, which was not very popular with our investment banking team. But we did that and followed it up, and at those point of time we have done these studies, and which are still true, that companies with better governance scoring, and now we expanded to use it as an ESG scoring, give much better returns over a period of time, right? So there is this whole concept of ESG. Now the problem is that if you look at it, so one part is impact investing and ESG investing, which also plays out. But the another part is that what are the government policies for that? Because these are expensive in nature, especially if you are taking care of environment, it becomes expensive in nature. And essentially there is a debate between we will do ESG investment, but there should be so much ROE or there should be so much return. And now with the change in US, we are going through a very interesting phase on how we evaluate ESG in a different manner, right? So these are start-stop policies which the world has gone through over the last 30, 40 years. It will again go through this start-stop process. But I think most of the countries, like, I was in China earlier, we talked about it, and I have seen that how the skies have become blue, right? If you would have read 10, 15 years back, like even many times I visited in the past, it was almost, at that time Delhi used to be clean, right? but Beijing used to be pretty bad. Now we know what's happening in Delhi, but Beijing has become quite clean. So it is an economic process. As your income grows, you invest and take care of that. But to answer your question, there are very specific funds who follow ESG. And there are many funds who have a policy that if a company is below a particular level of score, they will not invest in that. So it can be both a positive vote or a negative vote.
Good. Because we hear a lot of stories about ESG. As you said, right word is the start-stop. We talk more about it and then we stop talking about it. Yeah.
It's an important topic, so let's look at 2 or 3 things which has happened, right? And I'll talk about environment first, right? So obviously fossil fuel burning has been a phase which we have gone through since coal was discovered and UK became a big empire. That was all steamships and all the power. Nuclear somehow did not take off because of few accidents, but that again is becoming hot again, right? Because of AI and the need to have high level of power at a cheap price. But the real change which is happening in the world is solar became cheaper than coal, right? So at one point of time when we were, setting up solar power, per unit of power in India would have been 20 rupees. Now we are sub 5, while coal is also now more than 5, right? So to that switch which happened is the reason why solar has become so successful. Now the technological changes on which solar people are working on, that trying to get the efficiency of conversion from 20 to 23% to 40%, if that happens, then it falls to half again. So I think solar has already solved the environment problem from energy. What we have not been able to solve is the storage. That you can generate solar power during daytime, but what do you do at night? And the moment you start putting batteries in, batteries are expensive and that brings the cost up. Most of the changes in last 12 to 18 months which have happened is to bring down the battery price significantly, and they continue to fall. So I think once that happens, you will have a solution to burning fossil fuel with batteries both for vehicles and with solar both for generation. So I think that problem will be talked about less. The second part is the things which when you're producing something, what you put in water.
So right. Work in progress.
Work in progress.
So if there are, there is more questions.
Hello. Good evening, sir. Very informative session. One of the questions which I have is, what are the emerging sectors in India that are attracting major global interest in the current situations, and how is CLSA positioning itself in these areas?
So as I said, electric vehicles, that's a very hot sector, right? We had one listing already in that space. Many of the listed companies are trying to change that. So a hot sector is a sector which is always transformative in nature, right? Those automatically become hot, right? And electric vehicle is one way. Solar again is very interesting, which is we have again seen multiple IPOs in that space that would remain as a hot sector. If you look at the Indian market, there are these 3 or 4 sectors which are interesting, right? Third, which I talk about, is retail. Now, we have been talking about it for like 20 years. India will become an organized big retail market. It is happening in a manner we never envisaged, right? So, quick commerce, that is one very big sector. Along like food delivery was looking interesting, but now retail in the form of quick commerce is a very hot sector. We write research on all of them and work with all of them. But, I can talk for 45 minutes just on that, so I will just limit the answer to
we don't have that much time, I think. So we'll take one more question. One more.
I wanted to know what was it that prompted you to change your decision from joining
why you did not join your family business.
And also, if you can give advice to students on like how to take the decision, like when they are confused on where to go forward.
So, as I said, right, if you fall in love with something which you want to do, then you do that, right? And I think a textbook on financial management, when I was reading it, was totally new to me. Like as an engineer, you don't get exposed to all those things, right? So I just enjoyed reading it, and it was very mathematical in nature, right? So I just thought that this is, finance is a mathematical problem which you should know how to put in equation and solve. It is not that, right? But at that time, I thought that this is what it is. So it was an interesting thing which attracted me towards that. And then you think about like early 90s opening up, happening, Manmohan Singh is finance minister and he is driving that whole thing. You have the whole stock market is forming a new high. Like I remember that when we were in campus here, and the first Diwali, we were actually in the stock exchange. Or I don't remember, it's a Diwali or budget, right? One of those days we were in the stock exchange and it was a physical trading system. And we were not even allowed entry, but we were just feeling happy that we are close to the stock exchange and, just being part of that crowd. Financial market. So I think it was a very different, now you don't even have anyone because of no physical training. If you go to stock exchange, you will not find many people there. But that was that I think euphoria of those times and what was happening, plus the rigor of the way the whole financial sector works. I think that attracted me to do that. Maybe in today's world, people will just say, okay, if startup is better, doing something your own is better, and I am totally for that. So it's all what you decide at that point of time. Go with your heart.
And if you have a family business, you have a? No. So this is a hypothetical question.
No, but the good thing is that, like my father once took me around the industrial area near Jabalpur. Right, and we were going because we had to get some work done there, and then he showed me at least 70 to 80% of factories were shut. Right, they started and they shut down very fast. So at that point of time, the basic problem and that SME crisis which we talked about now is that India capital is very expensive, and when you start a business, you solve for everything, but you do not recognize the working capital problem, and then it is not available, and it's available at very high cost. So that sort of kills us. But now in the startup, when you have venture funds available and different the equity capital available,
tax exemptions,
so see, you cannot have a startup with debt. You should have either a bootstrap capability or you should have funding and equity. So I think that those things have changed, and that's why I am happy if people say that, oh, we want to do startup. I say fine, because there are other people sharing your equity risk. At that time, there was not that, right? It was your family property. Now, that was not the right way of doing it.
Great, thank you. So I think a lot of insights, and hearing from you, obviously, it comes from. You want to take one more?
Yeah, we can take last one.
Question.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. So my question is actually towards how you decided to stick at CLSA. So again, since you were switching from engineering to finance, how did you decide that CLSA was your calling, where you wanted to see yourself, progress in career?
So I think that this is a good question, because that will be very relevant for all of you in your career path, right? When you are going through your whatever path you choose, right? So I think there were 3 or 4 things which I thought were most important for me as flexibility in a company to spend long time there, right? I think the first most important thing was that the hiring policies and the working policy of companies are that you are surrounded by smart people, right? Because if you really want to succeed in life, the thing which you see, especially in the first 10, 15 years of your work, is that people around you, are they smarter than you or no? Because that's the way you learn. The same thing applies in the college which you go to, same thing applies, the friends which you have, that if they are smarter than you, it helps you grow and you learn a lot from them. The practices, how they apply themselves, that is the best, like peer learning and how you see how they are doing is the best. So I think I even till now we have maintained that culture of, hiring based on merit and giving the flexibility. So I think that was one very important factor. The second factor was flexibility to do what you want to do, right? So the changes which I talked about, right? Those are just one part of it, moving from research to sale, and that's not a very common thing in the industry, as you would know, right? It's a very rare, and CLSA we have done it all the time, right? As I said, I myself have transferred so many people from one department to another because I think it adds value, right? So I think that was the second thing, that those things when you are feeling bored, there is something else you can do and that keeps you going, right? So I think that was the second part. The third part, which is the closest to my heart and still is for us, is that the independence, right? So what happens is that in broking firms or investment banking firms, there's always this debate, which is the stronger department. So can you write a negative opinion about a company because you may get an investment banking mandate from them, right? Now, as a professional, if you are in research, that is not really good. It inhibits your power of expression and what you want to do. And I would not have worked in a firm. In fact, when I was choosing CLSA, I had two choices. One of the reason why I went with CLSA was because it's known as independent research house, right? So you have that power and flexibility of writing and expressing yourself the way you want. So I think these are 2 or 3 reasons because of which I feel great working in CLSA.
Thank you. Thank you once again. I think we can acknowledge this with extra time he has given us and shared a lot of insights. Thank you, Sonal. Over to you, Devang.
On behalf of KJ Somaiya Institute of Management, I would like to invite Professor Swati Godbole to present his role and express his gratitude.
First of all, thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful session. And I know for sure all of you must have gained a lot from sir, and it will inspire you to do well in your careers too. And as a token of appreciation from our side, sir, this is for you. With roots in Somaiya, your path was clear, a leader in finance year after year. From early steps in equities tide to guiding CLSA with wisdom and pride. At ABN Amro, you sharpened your skill, building plans and strategies at will. Then CLSA became your place where your vision set the pace. For over 2 decades, you have steered the course, leading with insight a driving force. Navigating markets with steady hands, you helped CLSA expand its stance. Campaigning India on the global scene, you navigate markets steady and keen, driving connections, fostering growth, your leadership a guiding oath. Through changing markets and shifting trends, your steady hand inspires and mends. Your legacy, strong and bright, inspires us all to aim for new heights. May I now request Dr. Raman sir to be on the stage. No, but you too, please.
Sir, Raman sir, please. Yeah. Also, I would request Padmini to come forward with the mug, which we would like you, sir, to sign as a memento for us. And once again, I invite Mahashweta to present a token of gratitude that she has prepared for our esteemed guest.
We would now like to stop the live stream.